Welcome to Entertainment Insider. I'm Jane, and today we look at a heartbreaking tragedy that's capturing national attention: the killing of Renee Nicole Good during a federal ICE operation in Minneapolis. Her story has sparked protests, political responses, and deep questions about law enforcement and community safety. We're unpacking every angle with our guest, civil rights analyst Alex Harper. Today's topic is heavy, but vital. We're discussing the fatal ICE shooting in Minneapolis that killed Renee Nicole Good. Alex, let's start with the basics. Who was Renee Good?
Renee was 37, a poet, mom, writer, and someone described by family as loving and compassionate. She lived in Minneapolis with her wife and 3 children, having moved from Kansas City last year.
Her life and legacy are far beyond this tragic event, yet that's what's brought her name to national headlines.
Yes, Renee studied creative writing, hosted a podcast with her late husband, and cared deeply about her community.
Let's talk about what happened that morning in Minneapolis.
Federal agents from ICE were conducting a major enforcement operation, part of roughly 2,000 deployed agents. Video shows Renee in her parked SUV when an agent approached and shots were fired.
Federal officials claimed she weaponized her vehicle and tried to run over agents.
Yes, DHS officials and President Trump stated the ICE officer acted in self-defense.
But local leaders dispute that account, right?
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey said the video doesn't show Renee trying to hit agents. He called it a reckless use of force rather than self-defense.
There's a huge gap between federal and local narratives.
And that fuels the controversy and national debate we're seeing now.
Now, this ties into deeper questions about ICE presence and federal raids in communities.
Yes, critics say large law enforcement deployments escalate tensions and risk civilian lives.
Governor Tim Walz has said the shooting was preventable.
He's urged peaceful protest and authorized preparation of the National Guard.
There were crowds and protests near the scene, many emotional responses.
Video shows law enforcement using pepper spray and crowd control after the shooting.
Let's talk about the reactions beyond Minneapolis, starting with Renee's former neighbors in Kansas City.
In Waldo, Missouri, neighbors were deeply shaken and grieving her loss.
Joan Rose described Renee as a loving mom who cared for her kids and community.
She said the family moved out of Kansas City after political tensions and had hoped for a peaceful life.
That adds a human dimension we often miss in headlines.
Absolutely. Renee's mother called her extremely compassionate. She took care of others her whole life.
Her family said she was likely terrified that morning.
Yet federal statements framed her as violent, complicating the narrative.
The Advocate and other organizations framed her death as senseless and unnecessary.
Human Rights Campaign and others noted she may have been part of LGBTQ+ communities already vulnerable to violence.
We've also seen local activism at vigils honoring her life.
Hundreds gathered, many saying she was peaceful and loved her neighbors.
Chants at vigils included her name and calls to remove ICE from their streets.
That speaks to broader frustrations with federal immigration policies.
There's also a federal investigation with FBI involvement.
Yes, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension initially joined, but then stepped back.
That has raised concerns over transparency.
And civil rights activists are calling for full accountability.
Even members of Congress are pushing for subpoenas of footage.
It's rare to see such pushback at multiple levels: local, state, and federal.
Let's pause and reflect. What does this tragedy say about community and law enforcement?
It highlights deep divides in how different groups perceive safety and authority.
Some see federal enforcement as necessary. Others see it as dangerous and unjust.
And when a beloved community member is killed, tensions naturally rise.
We're seeing calls for accountability, justice, and deeper reforms.
Communities across the U.S. are already responding with protests and dialogue.
Before we close, what's one key takeaway you want listeners to remember?
Renee Good was more than a headline. She was a human being with a family, community, and creative life.
And her death raises questions that go beyond this single event, about community trust, law enforcement, and how we protect human dignity.
These conversations are hard, but necessary for change.
Thanks for joining this urgent and thoughtful discussion, Alex.
Thank you, Jane. It's crucial we keep talking about this.
And thank you all for listening. If this moved you, share, subscribe, and continue the conversation.